Welcome to Superhuman Selling. If you have ever felt like you're carrying around old stories that are keeping you small, or if you've sensed that there's a deeper truth within you that is waiting to rise, then this episode is going to speak directly to you. I am so excited and honored to have my guest, Dana Grant, today. If you are not yet familiar with her work, you are going to be so glad that I brought her to you. And chances are you probably are already familiar with her because this woman's brand and her new book, which is The Truth Within the Lie: How to Align with Universal Principles to Create the Life You Deserve, is just skyrocketing. And I had had the pleasure of being connected to Dana through a mutual friend and immediately felt this soul connection, I would say, on our intro chat where I was like, Dana can look into your soul and know things immediately. So she's got some really, really beautiful gifts that you're going to hear as we talk today on the episode. I'll share a little bit more about her background, and then Dana, I'll open it up to you to say hello as well. But Dana Grant is an international master life and business coach. She's a keynote speaker. Her book, like I mentioned before, her book is The Truth Within the Lie. It's already a best-selling book, just recently released as of the time of this recording, and her work has been featured in Forbes, Medium, Microsoft, New York Today, and more. She which if you're watching the video, you're gonna love watching, her responses to this, but Dana has also co-founded multi-million-dollar brands. She leads transformational retreats around the world. She's helped countless people break free from limiting beliefs to step into their soul potential. Dana Grant, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited for the conversation today. I know this is gonna be so good for my soul as well, just to
Yeah.
to listen in and be able to be part of this with you.
I love our synergy. I love our conversation that we've had even prior to taping, just dropping in and connecting and expanding and what we both feel soul led to do, and that's to help people expand and clear out what it may be. I often think the debris of what clutters their life up and prevents them from getting what they really want.
Yeah, yes. Well, and I know that you talk about universal law, which we'll dive into in this episode. One of the universal laws that I often use in my own life is the law of sacrifice, right? That we're always
Mhm.
sacrificing something for something else. And so if we want to ascend, we need to release whatever's of a lower nature to create space for that of a higher nature. And I think that today in our conversation, hopefully will help people become aware of some old ways of being, old stories that it may be time for them to release so that they can make space for their expansion, space for more money, which, as you say, and know is just energy,
Yeah.
and to really experience life to its fullest. So I would love, we'll do just a quick little backstory here for anyone who's not familiar, but your journey includes very multifaceted, right? And everything from
Mhm.
breaking sales records to co-founding Cauliflower Foods. And I would love if to start to weave in with the theme of your book, if you could share a defining moment where maybe you realized that the stories that you were living weren't your actual truth.
Wow. No one's actually asked me that question yet. I think what I understood was that when I hit around 45 years old, my life wasn't aligning. There was definitely a feeling of what I was projecting to the world and what I was living. There was so much imposter syndrome. Um, I just felt like my truth, I didn't even know what it was. I just didn't know what the truth was anymore. Because I think when we are externally connected to other people's stories and we don't realize that we're not living within, that we are the safety, but someone else is safe for us and someone else's voice is leading because we're always looking out there externally instead of looking in. I realized that I didn't trust myself at all.
Mm.
So when I started to learn what would that feel like to trust myself, I had to go back and look at the versions of me, and there were so many. There was the 6-year-old, and there was the 10-year-old, and there was a 15-year-old. And then I recognized that there was that the healing had begun. And I think that we don't enter this realm of doing this work until we learn that we have to lean in and heal the versions of us and continue to love the versions of us. We hear so much about self-love and what that looks like and what that feels like in mirror work, but every day, there isn't a day that goes by that I am not deeply grateful. We say gratitude's the highest vibration in the universe. Well, it is, and I'm deeply grateful for the versions of me that kept me hiding, kept me lying about my life, because as long as I kept them in the shadow and I didn't expose them, well, I thought they were safe, but the truth is within that lie, the truth is they needed love, they needed healing, they needed to come out, they needed to tell their story. They needed the freedom that only can live on the other side, in the truth, in the light. And this is why we call it shadow work. It is not in the light. We are hiding pieces of our life, and it will never, ever connect us to what we want.
Mm. Yeah, yes. Um, I'm curious from what you shared because I think there's so many different approaches to healing and releasing limiting beliefs. You mentioned obviously the power of inner child work and the power of connecting with these different versions of you. And I remember, and my listeners who have been listening for some amount of time will probably know a little bit of my backstory here. When I first heard the concept of inner child work, I thought, this is ridiculous. Like, what does this have to do with business growth? This is crazy. And then I did it. And my business skyrocketed because I finally cleared some things I've been holding on to for a long time. And now it's something that we do
Mhm.
incorporate in our community. I'm curious from your perspective when it comes to the lies that are keeping us small. Is that because I think people have different approaches. Is that at all in your mind tied to inner child in different ages, where we maybe learn like it's safer if you're not heard, it's safer if you're not visible. Some people think it's past life stuff as well. Some people point to generational trauma and wounds. Is it all of it? What's
Well,
what I would
yeah, it's all well, it's all of it. I mean, that's a great question, but it is expansive. But what we wanna do is we wanna break it down because I think it's overwhelming when we think, "Oh my gosh, it's all of it. I'm gonna take all this on." And we see those little memes out there that can be like we're flying through the universe and it's like, "Ah, what's happening?" I love keeping it simple and I love breaking it down. I think we have to start somewhere. And for me, I had to start and forgive the versions of me that were full of shame. And I think that meeting that and then rewriting the stories, 95% of our life is stories. The subconscious runs the show. So in that subconscious, we have created an enormous amount of stories. And we may even believe them. It may be my mom said somewhere along the line, money doesn't grow on trees. And I picked that up. I talk about buying a new Range Rover for the first time, buying a new car without 30,000 miles on it, because my grandmother was a huge real estate mogul in California. Her money stories went deep, and I was very close to her. And she said, "Never buy a new car. Always invest in real estate." And I'm like, "Oh, can't buy a new car. Got it." So I shamed myself if the first time and well, the only time I lost my house to foreclosure, big story there. There's so much shame. And then I never gave myself permission. So when I started to succeed at my business, I woke up. It was actually on December 31st. And so, see, this is how guided everything is. It's December 31st. It's my dad's birthday. I drive to the Range Rover dealership. I buy the new car. Now, that broke my business open. Just giving myself permission to do that. Could I afford to do it? Yes. I gave myself permission. I literally quadrupled overnight.
Mm.
But more importantly, I even got a tax write-off because that Range Rover Defender I bought, even on December 31st, because it's 60,000 tons, I got a full write-off that year.
Wow.
And, so there were so many things that aligned that I didn't know that supported that decision, and this is where we're married to the process and we divorce the outcome. We do things that are aligned, and it lines up for us, even though we cannot see. I didn't know the consequences and all the benefits I would get from that. I just knew that this is something that I felt very called to do on that day.
Mm.
And it's amazing what opened up and what connected and the freedom it gave me, and then I released and then the stories that I didn't even know I had, as I was driving back, just came tumbling out. We don't always know, it's not a one and done,
Yeah.
and if we think that we're ever have arrived and we've healed, we are constantly evolving. I will say, I work with some of the wealthiest people in the world, and the stories are still the same with lack
Mm.
and scarcity. How much is enough to feel safe? We have to go to the core wound of what that is, and it's usually safety, and the safety lives within us. So if we can heal that version and as you know this work, it's, the repetition, Yeah. Using, I love every morning I wake up and I do this practice, 3 a.m. every morning. I'm excited to wake up. I'm excited to wake up and wake up well. I don't wake up, sick anymore. So I wake up and I say, all is well in my world. I am safe. I am loved. I am protected. I say that all through the day. It's simple, it's effective, and it's grounding. And if we say I am, that is our root chakra. That is what we ground ourselves into. And our body is full of energetic, connections. And I love all in my book in my book, I talk about it. I love all the modalities. I love incorporating universal laws. Like you mentioned the universal law of sacrifice, one of my favorite ones. What are you willing to give up in order to live an abundant life? Yeah. Because money is just energy and it does grow on trees as paper. And it only follows one thing, and that's authority. And you must be the leader and authority in your life. Whatever that looks like, you must lead it. And if you're not leading it, whose voice is? Is it ancestral? Is it is it your ancestors? Maybe they have a powerful energy over your family. Is it your mother, your father, a teacher? How many times have we heard a teacher said, "Don't bother writing a book because you're never going to write." And we see these best-selling authors that tell these stories on these podcasts that, "Hey, my fourth grade teacher said," or "My high school writing teacher said, don't ever think of being a writer because you can't write." And they're best-selling authors. Does it so we pick these stories up and these pieces up, and we get the right, we have the right. And our biggest power, I would say our greatest superpower is the right to choose. And we get to choose to believe that story, or we can rewrite it.
I wanna go deeper into 2 things you just shared there because it was,
Okay.
I'm mentally taking notes while you.
Yeah, I know, I put bra. No bra, I paint stroke.
No, it's beautiful, and I know that so much of our community is really interested in generating more abundance, right? And of course, a lot of that, a lot of the way we think about that is financial abundance, although there's plenty of different types of abundance I think that we can receive in our lives. But you mentioned the question of, well, how much is enough to feel safe? So for someone who maybe has felt like they struggled with their money story their whole life, regardless of how much is in the bank, and people can have millions, billions in the bank and still feel like they're struggling with their money story. Is
Absolutely.
that, I want to just go a little deeper into what you shared. You talked about safety. Does it come down to a core wound generally around safety? Or am I hearing that wrong? Tell me what you would say for someone who consistently there's a story of lack or not enoughness or fear or scarcity around money.
Great question. Our core wound will be our core fear. It can only be that. Whatever our core wound is our core fear. And a lot of lack, scarcity, whatever it was, and we don't have to make anyone wrong. It's just the way we heard it. It's the way we received it.
Yeah.
It's a message we got, and it created a story within us. And these stories tend to morph, and we create more stories around it and more stories around it. And if you've lived any time on this planet and this planet Earth, you've got a lot of stories. And that's why there's 95% of those. And then we've got 5% that we incorporate every day of something new, of reprogramming. Now, I'm going to go a step further. In order to keep people out of the overwhelm, and with 95% of these stories, and it feels like Groundhog's Day for a lot of people every day. They want to do it and then they go big. I say, all you need to do is 1 degree shift. That is it. Every day, do one thing. One thing. I just lost, well, I gained a lot. I lost a lot, almost 80 pounds. It was like, and there was, how did you do that? Did you take, well, whatever that stuff is that you inject and take, I should know the name of it by now, people have asked me enough. Ozempic, is it I said, "Nope, no, no, no Ozempic," but every day I got up and I chose health. I chose to look at something and I chose health, and at that 1%, I asked myself this question: does it feel like love? Does my food feel like love? Does my work feel like love? Does walking feel like love? Maybe not at first, but it does. If we're honoring ourselves and we ask ourselves, I always love a lens mat, those little Viewmasters where they have a little lens and we put those little pictures in and we get to click. We all have these stories that we've created. And, at first it didn't feel like love, but it started to feel like love because I thought eating late at night and overworking, and as I was going through some of the deepest trauma and shattering of my life, I thought none of this feels like love, but it actually did. Healing can be messy. It doesn't always feel good. We have to give ourselves, the permission to feel it all. No spiritual bypassing here. We
Mm.
can't just wake up and all of a sudden, and I think that this is epidemic where we compare ourselves to people out there that we assume we've created stories. We're looking at them. They've created a million. What are they doing different than I'm doing? Well,
Mhm.
number 1, we don't know their story. We don't know where they've been, and odds are pretty good you don't know where they've been, and their story isn't totally accurate on how you're receiving it. But stay in your lane in flow. This hustle mentality's gotta end, and we just talked about this prior to getting on the show. This addiction to more, more, more. I am for the first time getting ready to leave and walk the Camino, and I'm disconnecting and unplugging, and then I'm traveling to Barcelona. I'll be all over Europe, and I'm not doing masterminds. I am disconnecting, and I am deeply on this pilgrimage of just self-care, just whatever it is, I didn't even have a name for it. I just knew I had to do it.
Yeah.
And we have to give ourselves permission and know. So what can come up in something like that is lack, scarcity, money. I mean, there's no one I can lean into but me at this point. Have I set everything up correctly? Is everything gonna be okay? I have to stay out of I have to stay married to this process and stay out of the outcome. The
Mm.
outcome, if I'm in flow and I'm being called and I'm literally aligned with what I need to do, the outcome will take care of itself.
Yeah, yeah. I love how you put it earlier, stay married to the process and divorce the outcome, which is such a great way for people to remember that, and I remember, earlier this year to the point of, like, making our own rules and dropping hustle mode, which I
Mm.
completely agree with. When I took my maternity leave for my 3rd baby, I mean, it wasn't a long leave, but it was the fullest leave that I've had, now as an entrepreneur, having had 3 babies over the course of my business, and it was 5 weeks, but I was off, like, I was almost completely off during that time, and then I eased back in, and during that time, to the business, like, it didn't grow, like, it didn't skyrocket during that time, but it stayed steady, it stayed
Yeah.
consistent, and it was such a beautiful experience of, "Oh my gosh, how often are we doing things probably coming from a core wound or story about proving or, like, I've always gotta
Oh,
belong
yeah.
or else people are gonna leave me." What
Yeah.
would you say so if someone's listening and they're wondering, "How in the world do I even start to recognize some of these stories that I do again, it's subconscious, so they're not consciously aware. Is it
Exactly.
areas of our life that feel like they're not flowing the way we would like them to? Is that how we start to look, or is it something else? How do you approach that?
I think the most powerful thing I can say, and like I said, I like to keep it simple,
Mm.
is what is your most dominant thought every day? What is your most dominant thought? If and occasionally I'll have my clients set their timer. And when it goes off, what's your most dominant thought? What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about? What are you thinking? And it usually has a lot of repetition to it.
Yeah.
And it's usually something that has nothing to do with their life, has everything to do with unreasonable expectations, maybe some perfection paralysis, maybe an idea of someone else's. They're leaning into someone else's life, and there's a lot of comparison there.
Mm.
And I say unplug from all of that. Stay in your own lane. It's enough. You're enough. And I think that being entrepreneurs, we think that if we unplug, we're, everything that the balloon's gonna deflate and no one's gonna see us and we've got it. You know what? I think we could all use a little less. We could
Mhm.
all use a little less. And being a seer, I see how anxious people get about being seen and not being seen. And what people really are craving and I think we're seeing this paradigm, this shift, is connection. They wanna connect, and they wanna be seen by and they want a new energy field of, I don't maybe just reciprocation. You wanna be able to bounce that ball back and forth. I think that overgiving is a problem.
Mm.
There's a boundary issue there, and we have to look at all areas of our life. Where are we overgiving? What is our most dominant thought? What are we connected to? Um, what do we expect? What are our expectations? I think that starting there, we set ourselves up by what are we tolerating in this life? What are you tolerating from yourself first? Because in universal laws, I love the law of sacrifice. What are you willing to give up to get what you want? Which, in order to lose my weight, I had to, that 1 degree, I had to give up ice cream, every night that I was starting to eat. And I don't even know why I was doing it. It was just almost like a self-sabotage mode. But I had to give that up in order to I gave up sugar. But, that 1 degree, I'll go back to that. If I'm a plane and I'm flying in the air and I'm off by 1 degree, that's 360 miles off my trajectory. I'm off course. So 1%, 1 degree is huge. Don't ever underestimate the one move you can make today, maybe even leaning in and saying, what's the one thing I can do today that's different than I did yesterday?
Mm.
And can I be consistent with that? Because I often say we don't have a consistency problem. We have a commitment problem, and we have to be consistent to the right commitment.
Mm.
What are you committing your life to? What is your commitment? That you want to make a ton of money, that you want a happy life? Because I can guarantee you when there's more joy, more groundedness, more flow, the first thing you ask me today is how much time are you spending, in your garden right now? All the time in the world. I showed you all the burns on my hands from making all these recipes with my eggplant, my tomatoes, because in that there's flow, connection, and that's probably where my next book just came from. And
Mm.
and where I wrote all the programs for while I'm gone for my clients. I did videos and I wrote programs and workbooks for them because they're gonna continue to roll. That was in my garden. That wasn't sitting here hustling like, "What am I gonna do to fill up all this space?"
Yeah.
It's like, what can I do to expand their consciousness? Where how can they hold space and evolve in all the directions? But there's usually just one direction, and that's expansion. The heart only wants to expand. The ego will always contract. It will, that's its
Mhm.
job. Divide, separate, judge. That's what it does. It contracts and it says, back in the maze, back in the stories. We know those. We can protect you here. And then you've got your terror barrier. And over here is the newness of the version of you that you haven't met yet, and it's terrifying because you don't know and you wanna know all the answers, and I'm like, "Divorce that outcome. You don't know. You're not gonna know until you actually do it, and it's gonna be even bigger." And, all those what, coulda, shoulda, wouldas, or what if it doesn't work? What if it's bigger than you can possibly imagine? I never set a goal number for the end of the year ever because it it's always going to be limited. Our high low is what we know to be true.
Mm.
I wanna leave it open because the universe and God knows I can hold so much more than I can
Mm. Oh, I
in my capacity, and that's even with all the practices I do.
mm.
I wanna leave that completely untethered, like, show me what you got. The sky's the limit.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Wow. Wow. I love that. I've actually never heard anyone put it that way. And it's funny because I live and operate a lot in the world of goal setting, and I love how,
Yeah.
Bob Proctor put it, like, goals are not to get, they're to grow, so it's always in the energy of, who do I get to be as I have this target in my mind, but
Mm.
I love your approach to it that's, "Hey, I don't wanna limit it or cap God and the universe in terms of what I'm supposed to receive this year and how I'm meant to grow and expand." I wanna ask you about the core wound or the core story around unworthiness, and I see this
Mm.
show up a lot. I'm guessing you see it show up a lot. I've definitely dealt with it in my own life, and I have it show up in different as I evolve and expand, it shows up in different areas. So,
Yeah.
to your point, you're always healing, but we do this work a lot in our community as well. And one of the things that I teach in our community is your level of income will never exceed your level of self-worth. And when I look back on times where I felt really stuck at the same level, there was a part of me that desired more but didn't feel worthy of it. And I think that
Right.
core wound around unworthiness is, to me, a big piece of what keeps people stuck. So I'd love to just hear your take on that. Like, how do you see that showing up for people, and how do we start to disentangle that? And maybe I don't know if there's a universal law that helps support us in that, but anything you could say to that, because I think that's a common one that people.
Oh, it's huge. If we're looking at core wounds and we're looking at universal where everyone feels a little bit I mean, if we didn't have imposter syndrome when we were doing something new, then there's something wrong. If you're not terrified of the terror barrier, there's something wrong. But the fact of the matter is, yeah, I just said the high low. The high low is the high will never exceed how our relationship with our worthiness.
Mm.
The whole world can think we're worthy. We're never going to exceed that, and if we exceed it, it's going to be a sabotage. I know this one intimately. I exceeded what I believed I was worthy of when I worked for a lobbyist group. I broke records that have never been broken, sales records. And of course, I'm not worth I didn't feel worthy of that. In my mind, the story, so we have to look at the stories we created around that. So my stories, and it's in the book, was I'm not smart enough. I didn't get a law degree. Who am I to do this? Look at everyone around me. Why am I doing this? I have to be doing something wrong. It's got to be a fluke. It's not sustainable. I can't do it again. And I did it again and again and again. And then I would sabotage because that was the level I was comfortable at. That's the level I felt worthy at,
Yeah.
which was I'm not worthy of this. This was a fluke. I can't maintain that. I don't know who you all think I am, but I'm not smart enough to do that. I did the same thing when I created Cali'Flour Foods, the creativity, the when I took the business part, she's smarter than me.
Mm.
So I passed the baton over and over again externally instead of owning that power. And now I own all of it. There is no perfection, but I was also connected to that perfection paralysis. I had an idea of what that looked like in order to achieve that. Number one, let that go because it's messy and it's never what you think it's going to be. When I stay in my power, when I own every bit of me, even the vulnerability in this book of telling incredibly deep stories, I own every bit of it. I talk about it, and it's what keeps me evolving. It's what keeps me expanding. It's connected to my heart, my truth. We will not expand our stories, our money, if we don't drop in and start telling ourselves the truth. We will never have a more intimate relationship with anyone than ourselves. So look in that mirror, and I really do. I do this every day. I make my clients do it too. I'm like, did you look in the mirror today? And this, I say, Dana, what do you need from me today? I need, and this is how I came up with the Camino, and I hadn't, it was not on my radar to go walk the Camino from Portugal. I didn't even know what I was doing. I'm like, oh, people are, what route? I don't know. I'm walking from Portugal. Just, it took me months to even figure that out. I just did it. It wasn't planned. It was guided.
Mm.
We don't have to know all the answers. And when you're so attached to the answers of how you're going to get there, you've lost the track anyway.
Mm.
Stay in your power. Your power does not live in the past. Those stories are morphing and creating you and allowing you to choose something new, and there's no power in the future. There's no power in the past. There's only you can only power up now. In this very moment between you and I right now is all of our power. What we choose to say, how I receive it, how I speak it, how I receive you, this is all my power,
Mm.
and this is how it will morph and grow from here. But so many times we're in the future trying to figure it out, figure it out, figure it out, and that wheel just spins and spins, and we hear this all the time. "I wanted to create this business. I wanted to write a book. I was gonna do that," but they're attached
Mm.
to something that hasn't happened yet, and they're trying to figure out the outcome. Just the 1% today, just in the doing.
Yeah.
They're just jumping over their greatest power, and that's this very, very moment, this here and the now, this moment.
Wow. Wow. And you said something earlier, and I wanna ask you just 1 or 2 more things before we wrap, because I could go on and on with with you with these questions 'cause I love this. Everything you say, I'm like, "Yes." But you said earlier, something to the effect of, "We are our own safety." I think that's the gist of what you said, if I heard it correctly.
You
Um,
did.
and I think yeah, I think that's such a powerful reframe because so many people and no doubt many of our listeners and a lot of our community members and certainly myself and many times we've sought something outside of us, money, position, power, etc., to feel
Oh,
safe.
yeah.
And when we realize that that thing we've been seeking has been inside of us all along, which I kind of think is like the great cosmic joke of the universe.
Oh, yeah. The ruby red slippers, we had the power all along. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies as a kid.
Oh my gosh. And it's so true, isn't it? And when you to me, when I think about it, when we realize that, that helps drop the attachment to the need for, "I need this result, I need this, I need that." Um, and I wanna ask just one final question here, and then I'd love for you to direct people to your book, your show, like, wherever people can connect with you and go deeper in your work as well, but I had a conversation, with someone this morning who was doing some big healing work in her life and really working through a lot of core childhood wounds, and simultaneously, she was feeling like, "I wanna be taking action in my business. I wanna be prospecting. I want to be selling. I want to be doing these things, but I'm feeling so like I can't get out of this energy with it. How can we do the deep work, do the healing work while simultaneously leading and growing our businesses? Or are the two, is it as I heal, my business also grows? But I'd love if maybe you
Yeah.
can speak to that
That
because I
is
think
that
that's
is
pretty.
one of your most brilliant questions yet, because this is where everyone gets hung up. And, grace. Give yourself grace, but we must hold space for both. It is not one way or the other. It is not black or white. It
Mm,
is we are allowed to hold space for grief and joy. And I'm going to give you a quick story. When I found out, my 25-year marriage, and I talk about it in my book, when I got that call and it was public on, local practitioner sexual assault, and I'm like, oh, not my husband. I can set my watch by him. He's my rock. He was my everything. I trusted him emphatically. There was absolute, and here I am, a seer, a knower, and it's like an octopus on my face. I see nothing. People even now, didn't you see? Well, now, perhaps 5 years later, down the road, which isn't that long, yes, but there were times I was teaching my masterminds and still building my business and showing up and doing a really great job. And then I'd climb out of my chair and lay on the floor and grieve and go to my trauma counselor and I would heal. I held space for both. I did not judge myself. Are you capable of doing? Yes, I was capable of doing it. But there were days that I knew, you know what? Today's not a great day to show up. Give yourself permission to feel, to grieve, but sometimes we get to hold space for both and we are able to move through it. We don't just completely shut down. We see those people that completely shut down and go to bed. There's nothing wrong with going to bed for a week. I'm telling I did that too. But there comes a time where we must make a choice and we have to choose the healing. We have to see something salvageable in us, not in them, because I made it all about me. At first, what did I do wrong? Why not me? Why is this happening? I was literally shattered into a million pieces, and we picked those pieces up, and and we still give ourselves permission to be a mother, to show up for my children, to hold space there, to heal, to show up for my clients. But I will guarantee you, anyone that's listening to this, whether they're a coach or whatever they're doing in their life, they're going to call people in that are not further down the road than you. You're going to shine the light down that tunnel and it's going to be the right energy because energy doesn't lie. People lie, stories lie, ego lies, the heart never lies. And, so energy doesn't lie. We're going to call in what we need to heal and to evolve. And I hope that answered your question. We can go deeper on that, but I think it's giving yourself the grace and permission not to be either or. I have to be this until that happens. And this is where people get stuck. Until I do all of this, I can't do that. And I used to do that. It used to be my house had to be perfect. Everything had to be done. My checklist, everything had to be checked off before I gave myself permission to get on a call. And also, if they're on a sales call or building, they're resisting there. Lean into the resistance. The busy work, I also say, and anything under $45 an hour, resource out, hire out for, stay in your power, stay doing what you know best. And you know what? Reach out. And this is the deal. And I think I talked about this most recently. And it was actually, he's a billionaire. And he gave me this story of how he said, while everyone else is strategizing and trying to figure it out, I've already fallen on my face 5 times and come up with a solution and already sealed the deal.
mm,
And there's also another one that might resonate with your people that I really love this one. I really love that if you had a cure for cancer and you're talking to your best friend and you know that you've got this cure, are you going to hold that information back? If I know I can help and I can be of service, we need to be of service in the world. We're not selling. We are connecting and we are helping and we are hopefully all evolving together as a collective. And why would we hold back that information? So people hold it back because they're like, I don't want to be I don't want to be selly. I don't want to bother them. They're too bombarded. How about showing up authentically and changing your connection to that energy? Because energy doesn't lie. And I know when I'm being sold. And I also know when someone reaches out and it's an authentic connection and they're meant to be there and we're meant to connect and everything just evolve. And that is the way my energy in my world works now. But it didn't used to. I would say, "Oh my gosh, to make oh, what is that strategy? 5 sale calls a day, get on the." Yeah. How about just drop in and just do one thing today and just do it authentically? And get out of your own way. Get out. Pick yourself up literally, put yourself in a chair. As you see that pink chair back there, used to be my inner child chair next to me. And I used to have conversations all the time. I used to pick myself up and say, "Do you trust me?" The lack and scarcity thing would show up. And I'm like, "Do you trust me?" I would ask those questions. We need to ask better questions of ourselves, not of the world, of us. That relationship that's going to evolve us is within us, not outside of us.
Mm. Oh my gosh. So beautifully said. And I think just everything that you shared there, to me, it's about giving ourselves permission to expand, which looks like releasing what no longer serves while simultaneously allowing more in. It reminds me of a great song by her name's Tony Jones. She's been a performer at one of our events, and she's a wonderful affirmation musician. But she's got a song called "Healing in My Heels," which is I can heal, I can do the things, and simultaneously I can live my life. I can show up, I can dress up, I can go do the things. And as we do that, and as we stay rooted in service of others while simultaneously, um, pursuing our own transformation and evolution, I think the results naturally take care of themselves, so
I love that song. I love that song, number 1, and you're so
yeah.
right, we have to give ourselves permission, and I'm gonna add, for people that may be listening to this, sometimes our stories can be addictive. You
Mm,
know, sometimes we get addicted to feeling sad, we get addicted to sugar, we get addicted to
yeah,
alcohol, drug whatever it may be, but we get addicted to an emotion because we get a visceral an actual our body responds to it, and it can be familiar.
yeah.
You know, for me, chaos was familiar, so I created more chaos. That was familiar, it's why I called it in, it's probably why I married it. I mean, all the nothing is random in this universe. We can't say, "Well, this is random, and that's not random, that's planned." Nothing is random.
I know.
Everything is guided, and I do believe that everything is happening for us,
Yes.
not against us. I stay in that energy. I believe that because I am a living proof of a chaotic, messy life. I should have died. I should have died 100 times over, and I didn't.
Mm,
And I'm here to tell not only a better story, but the truth, you
yeah.
know, and share the lies. And the more I share and the more people I can help come out of the shadows and say, "I went through that too." I just had it happen this weekend.
Mm,
Someone sent me a message and said, "Listen, I'm addicted and no one," and I'm like, "Yeah, I get it. I get it." You know? And I almost lost my legs hiding through that addiction.
mm. Wow.
And it was prescription medication. So we could it's for another show, but it's in the book. So it's about what we can only meet ourselves at the level of truth that we're willing to own.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Beautiful energy to anchor into as we wrap the conversation. Thank you. Dana, tell everyone, how can they connect with you? Where can they get the book? I mean, I know it's everywhere now, which is so exciting,
Yeah.
but tell everyone how to connect with you further.
Well, it's The Truth Within the Lie. It did launch last week. You could get it on Amazon right now. It's rolling out into stores everywhere, I think, and then it will be on audio. I will be taping that when I get back from walking my pilgrimage. So I that will be sometime available in late October.
Mm,
Um, they can find me at The Real Dana Grant on Instagram, danagrant.com. You know, we have a lot of free gifts that we're giving away right now with the book. Um, yeah, just connect. And if they reach out, and on Instagram is probably where I hang out the most, I answer my own messages. It may take me a spell, as you know, it take you know, I'm on Zoom all day long because this is where I love to be. I love to connect. You know, I say I go around the globe every day, and I do, and I love that. You know, I've already been to England. I've already been to Ireland. I've already been to Italy today, and I love the fact that we're not limited anywhere. The only limitations is what we choose to put on ourselves.
mm.
The universe is abundant, and it is abundant. So that's a universal law I'm gonna leave, the universal law of abundance. It is abundant. It's an abundant universe, and you can tap into it. You just have to give yourself permission.
Ugh, beautiful. Thank you so much. Well said. I think that's it. We'll land it right.
That's it. That's a wrap. Oh, I love you. I love your energy. I'm so blessed to be connected with you.
Yes. Oh my gosh, the feeling is mutual. I'm so, glad and grateful to be able to bring you to our community. Thank you for this. And so for you, my listener, I wanna really encourage you to go get Dana's book, connect with her on social, subscribe to her podcast, let her know that you found her through our community. And I want to remind you, as always, to trust yourself on your path to success. Remember that your desires are green lights, leading you and everyone around you to a brighter future. I'll see you on our next episode.